Hey everybody, have a look at all these parts that are sitting here on the kitchen table. Getting ready to upgrade a fleet of computers. Well, 3 machines as of right now, but there'll probably be more later on down the road. I'm going to be upgrading these with the AMD Ryzen 3 2200G APU platform, socket AM4. There's the APUs. Got 500 gig hard drives with these. I thought about the possibility of going with M.2 SSDs, but since this client is upgrading quite a few machines, decided to keep it down to a certain budget. So I went with hard drives, conventional hard drives, at least for now anyway. Have 8 gigs of RAM per machine, 2 times 4 gigabytes. Yeah, I got the RAM off of Amazon. I got the hard drives from Go Hard Drive on eBay. Here's the motherboards. ASRock A320M-HDV motherboards. These particular boards offer a pretty decent amount of ports to work with. And of course, they also offer M.2, the Ultra M.2 slots for future upgrade ability. Kind of hard to see right through here, but we have a PS2 for keyboard or mouse, and 2 USBs. Got a DVI, a VGA, and HDMI. So we have 3 different options for hooking up displays. We have USB 3 ports, gigabit LAN, and audio, which these computers will be used by a sign and graphics company, one of my biggest clients. They do sign printing and stuff like that for a lot of realtors and stuff. So I figured it would be a pretty decent little setup compared to what they have right now. A lot of their machines were originally bought off of me years ago as refurb machines, and some of them, the specs are not the best on, so this will be a pretty significant upgrade. Now, something that's funny is I want you to take a look at the size of the boxes these APUs come in. It's been a long time since I've seen an AMD boxed CPU come in a box this freaking huge. For example, there's a Pepsi can, and just look at the sheer size of that thing. It is huge. So we'll have to open these up and see just how big the heatsink fans are. I'm sure there's probably a bunch of excess space inside there. So, let's have a look at the computers that we're upgrading. So down the floor are the 3 computers. They're all eMachines systems. These were from eMachines later years, from 2006 to 2008, that time period. These 2 here are older machines. See that one, and yeah, actually all 3 of them are mostly stock eMachine systems with RAM upgrades. And hard drive replaced hard drives, of course. Over time, the hard drives do fail. Yeah, I think all 3 of these are actually stock eMachine systems, believe it or not. With, of course, as I mentioned, with upgraded RAM, and they were running either Windows 10 or Windows 7, respectively. Still in service after all these years. See, that one there was working fine. Just it's in for just upgrades. That one there has a power supply problem. Probably failed capacitors in the power supply. That one there, it turns on, but when it goes to boot into Windows 10, it just hangs. Not sure what's the deal with this one. It's pretty low in hardware. It's actually just a Pentium 4 775. This is one that that was a trade-in from the same company, and I later sold it back to them as an upgraded, refurbished machine. But so yeah, The one on the left will be the easiest to upgrade because it doesn't have those freaking dreaded faceplates that the older eMachines have, like that there. These are always a pain to deal with. Well, at least both of these do have just one optical drive. So, and to be honest, when it comes to these, they can be reused. It just depends on the OEM of the actual drive. I experienced this when I upgraded my entire Lux earlier this year. Of course, the entire Lux has the eMachines drive faceplates just for cool looks. That came back to haunt me when I went to upgrade the system last, because the machine had IDE. I'm sorry, I'm shaking the camera, zooming in all the way, but it had IDE optical drives in it, and I needed SATA. Luckily, I was able to swap out the faceplates with the new drives. Matter of fact, I happen to have some older eMachines drives that matched the brands of the new drives going into the machine. So it was a pretty simple, straightforward swap over. And I experienced this with the Black Max when I did its upgrade back in, I think, 2013. So yeah, it's not my first rodeo dealing with eMachines faceplates. I'm going to try to see if I can preserve them, but if not, oh well, I guess. But I'll tell you, the client, this particular client just cares the machines are functional. They don't really care too much about looks. But anyways, yeah, 3 machines get ready to get upgraded. Okay, so I guess we'll start out by doing an unboxing of the components. Get this adjusted decent enough. So that's the motherboard. And I already had looked inside, so the manual and stuff is actually already sitting somewhere else. I have to go grab it, but so here's the actual motherboard itself. Your pretty typical micro ATX board. It has a PCI Express single lane and a 16 lane for video cards and such. Where your CPU or APU battery gets installed. See, DDR4M goes there. So I'm going to grab the rest of the stuff to this motherboard. That way you can see it. Okay, so in addition to that, you get the I/O shield plate. Don't you just love these freaking things? I'm sure many of you have probably cut yourselves at one point or another installing one or removing one. They give you 2 SATA cables, which is plenty for what we're doing. Here's the manual and the driver's CD. So I think our best method of attack here is to install a RAM and install our CPU onto these individual boards. I think I'll actually do one at a time, so I don't have to worry about these things sitting around. But I guess either way, it don't really matter. So I guess we're going to do our APU next. So it opens the burning question of, let's see, it opens the burning question of how much empty space does it have in that gigantic box? Also, to mention, you get an M.2 screw for your Ultra M.2 slot. Yeah, I forgot to mention now, I think. Okay, the burning question. How much empty space do we have inside here? Is it a lot, or is it a little bit? So this one should include a heatsink fan. Obviously it does by the weight of the box. Alrighty. So here is the APU and the sticker for your computer. Man, the heatsink really is freaking big in this thing. Good gosh, it looks like something you see from Intel. How about? I think anyway. Let's see. Yeah. Well, that's quite nice. Let's see, 5-blade fan. Now, does that look like Intel or what? That's right. That's a rather interesting approach at a heatsink fan. So it's funny. Even now, the boxed coolers don't even use the clip on the motherboard. That's quite interesting. So in this case, you would remove the uppermost side of the mounting bracket, and you'll put this. I think you would actually retain the back side of the bracket, and this will fit into place. It's spring loaded. It's quite a neat little design, I think. But yeah, that looks so much like an Intel, don't it? The gigantic rounded fan. That's pretty neat, though, I think. So I'll go ahead and just set. Let's see. Set this to where the thermal compound won't be disturbed, because we'll just use what they included. And typically, what they include works just fine. Okay, so we'll go ahead and install our processor to the motherboard. See what, very nice looking motherboard. So we'll need to go and remove this bracket here. Now, of course, if you was wondering, with these clips, you can use a conventional, older style heatsink fan. I believe the ones all the way back to socket 754 are compatible. As long as the cooler attaches to these clips. Now, it's interesting to see AMD go with a new design with their heatsink fans. Now, of course, keep in mind this is just my first time seeing this, so it may have actually been around for a while. And I just hadn't seen it, but yeah, this is definitely a needed improvement over what they have been using, to be quite honest, because it was getting to the point where their heatsink assemblies were getting to be crap. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, but the AMD's not going to be facing up on this. So yeah, it goes in like that. Go ahead and put our CPU into place. Now, before I open this up, something important to keep note of. The motherboards I purchased for this are indeed Ryzen Desktop 2000 ready. meaning you shouldn't have to do a BIOS update in order for it to recognize the processor. And of course, there's your typical AMD paperwork that comes with their newer products. And I'm just looking here to see what kind of directions they note of on here. I'm just looking to see where they've referenced the newer style cooler. I'm just looking just for the heck of it. I think the best way to install the cooler is to do it in a, you tighten them in a sort of like a clockwise, a circular manner. So, that being said, with some heatsink fans, there is a specific process that's involved with actually installing the thing. So in some cases it may not be as simple as it looks. And of course, for installing the processor, you just, in this case, you match up the triangle, or the triangle on the socket. And of course, keep in mind that the pins are very delicate on these. We're going to set this down into place. So what we can do is we should be able to wrap this around. Actually, no, we go this way, because the header for the fan is right there. Now, of course, I know some of you guys know I have that that cordless electric screwdriver, but there are certain things where I opt to not use it. Particularly stuff that you have to be delicate with. And of course, never forget to plug your fan into the motherboard. Okay, so that's installed. Let me just take a closer look at it. Looks perfectly fine to me. So yeah, you actually use the factory backplate. It's kind of like my water block in my system. But wow, that's a big heatsink fan. The actual heatsink isn't really all that big, but it does offer quite a bit of surface area. So it looks a little bit in Intel style to me, with a big, gigantic, rounded off fan. It looks cool though. Now we have, and let's see, if your RAM is really tall, it is kind of close over here, but in this case it should be fine. So I'm going to grab one of the things of memory. Yeah, it's interesting. The motherboard's black, the CPU core is black, the RAM's black. Man, everything is like the same color here. And also DDR4 RAM mounts just a wee bit different than your older style RAM does. Instead of having a notch here and well, not notches, but these levers, instead of having a lever on this side and a lever over here, you have just one lever over here. Other than that, the installation process isn't really much different. Make sure it's fully seated, that's the key thing. Okay, so that one's done and ready to go, ready to be installed. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do the other two, and then we'll resume video from there. Well, here's kind of a fail on AMD's behalf. So with these Ryzen 3 2200G processors, you're supposed to get a Ryzen 3 badge and a Radeon Vega Graphics badge. However, with the other one, with the second one I unboxed, we only have the Radeon sticker and no Ryzen sticker. That's kind of a fail. I'm going to unbox the stuff for the third one. Again, you get the manual, the screw, the SATA cables, the CD, and your I/O shield plate. Got a pretty nice collection of stuff piling up over here. And we're going to unbox the processor. Let's see if this one has both the stickers. That's why I started this little segment of video. It appears to. Yep. We aren't missing any here. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate that the second one is missing one of the case badges. It's like their machines may have either missed it or it got lost in shipping. I don't know exactly what happened, but I mean, years ago I had the total opposite happen. One time when I bought a Phenom 2 processor back in 2009 or 2010, it came with like 5 or 6 badges. They all were, I guess, they all stuck together when they were. I guess the machine was placing them in. I don't know, or maybe it was done by hand. But there was like, I had so many extra AMD Phenom 2 badges, and you see this in here is still on its, never before used. Interesting to know. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but oh well, big deal. Like I said, this client does not really care too much about appearance. They care primarily for functionality and performance. So, you know how that goes. Okay, now that I have all 3 motherboards prepped and ready to go, we'll go ahead and start gutting the old machines of the components that are getting swapped out. Start up with this particular eMachine. It's the newest of the bunch. This one should be the easiest to upgrade because of the fact that it doesn't use those faceplates on the DVD drive. And I'm also going to install a fan into this one too. It's missing a fan. So we'll get to that in just a moment once we get all this old stuff out of here. So we're just going to go ahead and disconnect our cables. All that good stuff. Let's just say I thought the tech room was messy before I started this. It's going to be real messy by the time I'm done. Like it always is after big upgrade work like this. And seeing all but one machine, we're going to retain the power supply. Now I didn't actually blow these out because they weren't really all that dirty, but there is a little bit of dust in them. Turn this fan on up here to sort of circulate the air. It's a little bit better. I'll definitely be using that motherboard and CPU for a refurbished machine, because that's actually a pretty decent little board. It's nothing newest out there, but it makes somebody a nice computer. Okay, so now we just gotta get the CD drive, and with this machine you have to remove the front bezel. Actually managed to get out without breaking it. So actually I said earlier that I was going to gut all three of these machines at the same time. I think I'm just going to actually gut this one, build it up with the new components, and then do the same process with the other two. I'm going to put this out in my collection of drives. Still a good drive, but it's an IDE drive. Most new motherboards don't have IDE ports anymore. So now we need to remove this little cover that that's in place to sort of block the vent. You may be wondering, why is that there? You're probably thinking it's the best. The best strategy is to leave any and all ventilation open. But the reason why that's there is to sort of help guide air from the front of the machine through the back. Well, that's great. This tears apart. Not exactly what I was wanting, but okay. Not like I was going to get reassembled anyhow. Okay, that's out. And now we need to go and get the I/O shield out. Oh, it's dust. Okay, so it looks like we are good to go. I'm going to start putting the new stuff in. So I guess we'll start out with the dreaded I/O shield plate. These things are always fun. These things can always be very fun to install. Sometimes you cut yourself on them. Especially the really cheap ones when they go to put them into a flimsy case. Hey guys, if there's any sort of bend in these things, they just don't want to go in. It don't take much. Okay, that one's in. So we're going to grab a motherboard and get it installed. Okay, we got our motherboard CPU RAM combo. Probably best to install this thing while the hard drive caddy's out of the way. Just want to make sure that all our screw holes are in the right spots, which they are on this case. Board here is a little bit smaller than the old one. Take up a little bit less space. So actually, on this one, that there really should be up here. So let me see if it's removable or not. It just pops out. The reason why I popped it out was because it was touching up against the bottom of the board, and that's not a good thing. However, in a case where you can't get it out, you can always just line it with electrical tape or something like that. So now we'll go ahead and put our motherboard into place. And it's going to be a spot over here where there's a bit of overhang, where there's not a standoff, but that's not too big of a deal. As long as you don't put too much pressure on that corner of the board, you're fine. Okay, so it's installed. As I mentioned, there's a little bit of overhang right here. Just gotta be careful with it. So now we'll go ahead and get our hard drive and optical drive ready to get installed. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do the hard drive first. Pretty straightforward, not anything too major. In fact, I'll go ahead and set the cases aside so that way you can see on video here. So the new motherboard comes with two brand new SATA cables, so let's go ahead and use them. I'm going ahead and upgrading the hard drive in this one because it's just a 160 gig hard drive, and the new hard drive is a 500 gig. And is most likely faster performing than this one. This hard drive here is already several years old. It's one of the white label drives I installed years ago, and it's actually in good condition. I have had a few of, probably at least a couple of these with the white label. Not the MediaMax ones, but this one here. I've had a couple of them. Fail smart. It had to be replaced, but other than that, the white label drives have done pretty well. So we got this hard drive. One thing that's interesting about the eMachines eCooper style cases is on the side of the hard drive caddy they actually have mounts where you can actually mount a 60mm fan. Quite interesting, and I don't think I've ever seen eMachines actually do it, but it's neat that the case provides that. Now go ahead and install our optical drive. Okay, now let's go ahead and hook up our cables, all that good stuff. The only downside with using older cases like this is they don't have any USB 3.0 ports on them, which is kind of unfortunate, I think. But in a case where a client really needed the extra speed of USB 3, you could always throw in some ports in the back or whatnot. And also the ports on the back of the system, there are 4 available. They're all USB 3. And the way this thing here is routed, it's going to be it's going to be close, I must say. It's going to barely reach without having to reorganize the cables. And plug in our card reader and USB ports, USB 2.0 ports in. The USB 3 header is right there. Plug up our SATA cables. We use the ones that they provide. It's kind of unfortunate that both ain't like that, where they have the 90-degree plug on the end. Actually, I will use that one on the optical drive instead. Plug in our SATA power. This power supply offers plenty of SATA connections. Matter of fact, it's what that power supply is really intended for. It only has one 4-pin Molex, which is getting used by the IDE drive that was in here. And of course we'll go through and tidy up the cables when we're done. We'll We'll tidy them up as good as we can. Okay, let's go ahead and grab the case fan. I'm going to test it first to see how it does. Make sure it's not overly powerful or overly loud, or make sure bearings are not in bad condition. Stuff like that. Although this one is kind of slow, it's actually designed that way. That should move plenty enough air to keep this machine cool. Because we don't have a whole lot of stuff in here. Matter of fact, when I get into the BIOS, I can set it to run at full speed, just to make sure it runs at full speed. And also, just a little FYI, with most fans, the direction of airflow is typically the side that the motor is mounted to. So this will be, the air will be going, you look at the fan like this, the air will be going this way. So I'm going to grab some fan screws and get this thing installed. And plug in our fan header. Okay, our cooling fan is now installed. So it looks like everything is in and accounted for. Just got to get all the cables tidied up, and we'll resume from there on. Okay, I've got the cables tied up. It ain't the neatest you've ever seen, but it's functional. Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of cables in this machine. Just going to put the front bezel back into place. Just making sure this button here works for the CD drive, and it does. Okay. So this in here is ready to go. Get all this trash out of here. Like I said, this room's going to be a total mess by the time we get done upgrading all three of these machines. This is going to be it's going to look like a disaster area. I mean, the trash is just going to be so outrageous. Also go ahead and put a cover over this open expansion slot where the modem used to be. Okay, that's installed. So this machine here should be ready to go. Go ahead and slide the panel back on for the time being. Then we can start on the next one. And things will probably get a little more fun with these other two. Okay, so one down, two to go. Okay, so here's our second one. This one here, okay, so the first one was a Pentium dual core. This one here is an Athlon 64 3200 plus, I think, socket 939. The power supply on this one's bad. I think there's some failed caps in the power supply. I may investigate that in a later video. So go ahead and remove these cables. Old IDE cables. These are actually some of the nicer ones. They're made of a material that easily flexes. And of course they're all black, so they are pretty easy to deal with as far as cable management goes. Not the easiest though. I tell you, SATA cables are a whole lot better. I've already disconnected most of the power supply cables while I was troubleshooting the power supply. And this motherboard has some failed caps on it too though. So the board may be bad as well. There's no telling with this thing. I'm gonna probably be tossing this board right into the death row box. Or I may try it separately to see what it does. Even with the bulging caps, it may still be functional. It's funny, my grandpa's computer still has one of these exact boards in it, and it runs Windows 10. No, actually, no. Take that back. This is only. This is actually. No, this ain't the same board, because this one only has two DIMM slots. He's running an older eMachine with a Athlon 64 3400 plus socket 939. Forget how much RAM it has. It's running Windows 10. He just uses the thing to get on Facebook and play solitaire and stuff, and it works perfectly fine for him. You'd be amazed what Windows 10 can actually run on. It can actually run halfway decent. I mean, the machine ain't terrible. I mean, the machine's not terribly slow, believe it or not. Okay, so this one looks to be sort of the same deal as far as the motherboard goes. Oh, actually, hang on just a second. On this one, it's like you can actually take that out and move it up here. That's perfect. Set this old board to the side. Into the death row box because it's obviously in not good condition. And also we gotta take this power stop because it's bad. It can probably be fixed. It probably just needs replacement capacitors. It's a Bestech ATX 312E. Wrong way, Nick. There we go. Once we get the power supply out, I should be able to look in and see if there are any bulging caps inside there. Yes, there are. Yeah. It's funny that the 5-volt standby looks okay. It's just we have at least 1 or 2 bulgers over on the secondary. And sometimes capacitors, what they can do, sometimes when they fail, is they'll short. Yeah, it's definitely making a weird noise. With all the hardware attached, you gotta try to turn on the machine. It turns on for about a second and shuts off. Not even a second. I mean, it's like the power supply short circuit protection. Goes into play. You try to press the power button, it'll turn back on until you unplug the machine. Obviously, it's a short circuit. Let's see if we can relocate this screw here. Yes, we can. This way our new board should fit in here perfectly. That's what I say. Other than the faceplates on the front of the tower, I do like these older eMachine systems. The cases that they come with are pretty handy, which is good to know that, especially considering the vast majority of the older eMachines systems that came with the dreaded Bestech 25012E power supply. When your motherboard gets fried, you could use that case to upgrade to a actually nicer machine. One thing that's interesting to note about this client is they have a lot of their machines, both ones that they've bought from me over the years and ones they already have, are eMachines. So I'll probably be going through quite a bit more of this as they upgrade more of their machines. Here's one of the tricky things that we're going to be dealing with. Which, good thing to know, this is a light-on drive. And let me go and grab the components from the new machine. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is the old optical drive. And here's the new one. I gotta get it out of its packaging. So let's hope the other one is also a light on. But if it's not, I may have a couple of eMachine drives up here that are actually light on. What's neat about these optical drives is, for the most part, over the years, between OEMs, for example, with Light-On, their faceplate attachment has not really changed. When I did the upgrade to the Black Max years ago, I had to, of course, go from IDE drives to SATA optical drives, and one of the drives was a Samsung DVD-ROM built in 2002, and the drive I installed was a brand new Samsung DVD-ROM from 2013, and the faceplates just fit perfectly. So, if you look carefully, you may notice how these are practically the same. So we should be able to swap this faceplate over to here. That way we can retain the stock eMachines look. So we'll get to that in a moment. First I'll go ahead and get a motherboard and hard drive installed. Then we'll deal with the optical drive. Also, we got to put a power supply in this one too. And the power supply in our third one is okay as well, but it's a 20-pan unit and it has only Molex and no SATAs, but we can make it work. It's a Delta 300 watt unit. So you may be asking, why am I not going with brand new power supplies with this upgrade? When it comes to power supplies, these particular setups don't require a whole lot of demand. So the existing 250 watt and 300 watt units that we have should run them just fine. Also, I do happen to recap power supplies and stuff like that. Now, let's say if this is for example, these eMachines had the dreaded 250 watt 12E unit. Yeah, it'd obviously be replacing it with something new. But the power supplies that these machines already had would actually run. These will actually run this new stuff rather fine. And of course, these faceplates, you got to fight them to get them in. Now this eMachine here, the case is a lot more sturdy. Than the previous one. So getting these things to pop in is going to be a little more tricky. Okay, I just had to change out the batteries in the camera. And I found me a paper clip. So what you have to do here is insert it like this. Press down, and it should eject. Yeah, key word is should. There we are. So So that's ejected. I was using this as a power supply jumper. So what we do is on the bottom, you just pull out and press up, and that pops out. And on the side and bottom, we have clips have to be pressed in. There, finally. Okay. Now, one thing to note is sometimes you may run into a minor issue to where the LED on the new drive and sometimes the paperclip release are not exactly in the same spot. But it's kind of a minor issue. So yeah, on this one the LED's not going to be in the same spot. Oh well. And neither is the release. Again, both pretty minor, I think. So it appears the eject button is, at least on this bezel, is pushing it a wee bit too far. So I'm going to actually trim a little bit off of it. Just a little bit, don't need a whole lot. Let's try it again. Okay, so after enough gnawing on this little piece here, this is another one I pulled out. So it looks like I may have enough to do these two drives. After gnawing enough off this piece, I was able to make the eject button functional. However, the only thing about it, as I mentioned, is the LED is obscured by this, because on the original drive it was over here. Just going to plug it into a power source just to eject it and have a look at it. So yeah, what I could potentially do is I could drill a hole into this to where the light would be visible. At least that's what I'm thinking anyway. Let's have a look at this again. Yeah, it's a possibility. Nonetheless. I could probably do sort of similar thing to gain access to a hole where we could that way the original emergency eject would work. So what I did first was I drilled a hole to here, but not where it would penetrate fully to the other side. My idea is that way the LED will be visible. Here we are. Okay, that one works. So we do have functional eject holes here, but it's just kind of rigged up, I guess you can say. It works. All right. So we're going to use our emergency eject hole to eject the drive, and we'll install this faceplate. The faceplate says DVD ROM on it, but oh well. There's always a little fix for that. Another little problem I encounter with some of these is they put a little notch in the thing. Makes it kind of difficult to get it in. But I have a fix for that as well. Yeah, just pick all the plastic out of the way. Okay, we've successfully converted this one to the eMachines style faceplate. So now we can actually install this drive back into the case like it would normally got installed. See, the thing is, if you're unable to actually modify the thing, you won't be able to install a replacement drive into the uppermost drive bay due to just the way that the thing is designed. The eMachines towers, which, let me go get the tower and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'll just crap out the way. Save these two for the next one. Okay, so if you look carefully, maybe you'll see this on video, but in eMachines towers from this time period, the drives, due to the big freaking faceplate, sit back further than your typical drives would. Now you may notice in this second drive bay, they have a hole here and a hole here. And the same goes for over here. So that way, if a customer was to install a second drive, a drive with a standard faceplate can easily be installed into the bottommost drive bay. But for the uppermost one, you can install it, but there's going to be a huge open gap, and it just looks ugly as crap. So that's why I put a little extra effort and try to get the new drives converted over to eMachines drives. So we'll go ahead and pop this into place. Some of you might think I'm crazy for going that far and beyond to do this, but I mean, doesn't that look so much better? I mean, it's my opinion. So I'll go ahead and get this one bolted in. We can resume what we were originally doing. It's like, holy cow, that took a while. You don't want to torque those down too hard because the threads on those are very delicate. And we'll go ahead and do our hard drive, so put this out of the way again. Yeah, I'm having to set them down the floor because I have literally no counter space or no table space at all because of all the other stuff that's piled up on the table. Take out this old Hitachi drive. It's actually a 160 gig drive, but it's IDE and it's pretty slow. Let's see. These drives were known for being pretty reliable. I've tested quite a few of these in Crystal Disk Info, and they were still showing good health status after all these years of operation. The Hitachi drives, they about last forever. I mean, most of the drives in the Mid-Tower Lux are Hitachis, and they've been going for years. I mean, literally for years, because the machine never shuts off. It's always on. So yeah, Hitachi Death Stars, I think it's probably some of the best drives ever made. At least for the desktop hard drive market. I mean the conventional, regular hard drive market. And I'll go and unpack our new drives. Our new drive, rather. tell you, I've built so many computers in these eMachines towers. I have to say, other than having to deal with the drive bays, the faceplates, they're great. They're great towers to reuse. I think anyway. Okay, so now we can go ahead and get that installed back into the system. Okay, now we're going to start hooking up our cables. It's nice that these older eMachines towers have a hard drive activity LED. The first one we worked with did not. Now, one thing you sometimes might run into is some of the older towers may have, instead of HD audio headers, have AC97. Though I think, I'm not certain, but I think all these have HD audio. Another thing I sometimes run into with these older eMachines towers is the card readers that come with some of them. You know, they're so old that they don't recognize SDHC. And I don't think, as far as I don't think there is a software update that would allow them to read SDHC. I just had to change out memory cards. First one ran out on me. Now I cut the zip tie here. Have to be careful that we're not cutting wires. I'm noticing something else with this Akfel's power supply that I didn't notice in my previous video. It's like they were too cheap to run a 3.3 volt power cable into the SATA power cable. So you're supposed to have your 5 volts, 12 volts, 3.3 volts, and ground. Whereas on this one you just have 5 volts, 12 volts, and ground. Now with conventional hard drives you shouldn't have too much of an issue with that. But with some SSDs you will have problems, because some SSDs actually prefer 3.3 volt power. Most of them run on 5 volts, but I have seen some that do like 3.3 volts being available. So yeah, that's kind of crazy that they would skimp on that. Okay, so we got the cables tidied up in this one a little better than they were. So we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, so last but not least, the third one. Finally see light at the end of the tunnel. Went down, like they say. Probably should have cleaned this one out a little bit before I started on, but it's not terribly bad. Typical process. Just disconnect all the cables, all that good stuff. Okay, so this one was a Pentium 4 3 gigahertz, I think. It was originally a Celeron D, and as part of an upgrade years ago, I dropped in a Pentium 4 in this one. And recapped the motherboard. There was a few caps that were bad and need to be replaced. So other than that, I got a RAM upgrade, maxed out at 2 gigabytes. This old DDR motherboard. Let's just say this thing ran pretty warm. Put out lots of heat for not a whole lot of processing performance. So we get this old motherboard out of here. It might be useful for something else down the line, but at only 2 gigs of RAM, it's just not a whole lot you can do with it. ATI Radeon Express 200 graphics. It does offer a PCI Express slot though. This one has a 300 watt Delta power supply in it. We will have to use some SATA adapters with it. You see that you had to replace the whole power supply, which the power supply has been working fine in this machine. You see, what I'm dropping in here is going to be likely less power hungry than what's coming out. So I have to keep that in mind as well. Not sure why this is missing a screw up here. Old optical drive. So go ahead and grab the new components for this one. I'm going to drop the motherboard into this one. This one just went right in. Well, I know the old one came out kind of easy. So it could be the, all it takes is just a slight difference in size in the hole that's in the case, I think, that can make installation of this shield heater real easy or a real pain. And quite literally a real pain in your finger. Okay, so in this one it looks like the piece is not removable, or it doesn't have the hex on it like the other one did. So let's see what we can do with it. Not really wanting to budge. Yes, this is like the other one, unfortunate. The first one we dealt with, where it doesn't want to budge. Have to pop it out, unfortunately. I think a lot of it boils down to when the case was manufactured. This is a slightly later case than the second one we were working with. And tighten these screws down. Okay, motherboard's installed. Guess we'll go ahead and do the hard drive. Man, we're missing a screw from the hard drive too. Jeez. Kind of crazy. Replacement hard drive installed. Yeah, I'm sorry kind of doing this off video, but I want to try to get this done. It gets a little old after a while. And now for the optical drive. So I gotta do the faceplate swap and all that good stuff. Okay, we're going to get our optical drive installed. Now that we have eMachined it. Okay, now that's installed. We're going to have to get 2 SATA adapter power cables for this one. Which I have plenty just for this reason. They essentially have 4-pin Molex on one end and your SATA attachment on the other end. We're going to plug in the rest of our power connectors. Now this is a 20-pin power supply. Normally you'd want to use a 24-pin, particularly if you're using like video cards and things like that, any sort of extra load on the board, on the motherboard. But in a case like this, we should be fine with just a 20-pin. Plug our 4-pin connector over here. And we'll plug in the rest of our connectors for like our audio and stuff like that. Okay, it looks like all these three machines are done, as far as building them anyway. So we're going to take a break and try to clean some of this mess up, and we'll start testing these things out and see how they do. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and try out each of these three computers. Of course, they have no operating system on right now. This will start up and make sure they're running okay. Yeah, I've sort of managed to clean the place up just a little bit, relatively speaking. Like I said, the place gets a real mess when building new systems, especially when you're building multiple machines at the same time period. So I will need to borrow the mouse off the Plexi because these new motherboards only have one PS2 port, not two. Which means I can hook the keyboard up via PS2, but the mouse has to be hooked up via USB. So we'll start out with the last one that I done, the one that was the P4 system. I'll pull the side panel off. Yeah, I forgot to add a extra shield in here where the modem used to be. I'll go ahead and do that now. I tell you, it's always something. Kind of hard to get to with this thing. Just to make sure it's well tight. Oh yeah, of course. The thing always gets them tight. Alright. Moment of truth for the first one. I always recommend you plug your keyboard or mouse into a USB 2 port. This one does provide them. Okay, And plug in our video connection and our power connection, see what this thing can do. Hopefully we get no DOAs. Apparently the video cable was not quite tight. Okay, so we got a post. That's always a good sign, especially on the first power up. Of course, as mentioned, we have no operating system. Let's access the BIOS. Let's get you a quick look in the BIOS. Oh, nice UEFI utility. This looks a little different than the one that's with the Mid-Tower Deluxe. I was just looking to see what kind of overclocking options were there, if there are any. I imagine this probably doesn't offer quite as much as, let's say, the motherboards in the Mid-Tower Deluxe. Our CPU's running good and cool. Our voltages look good. I tell you, UEFI utility is always nice. It's definitely a step forward from what it used to be with BIOS utilities. I imagine some of you very young techs out there may not be even too familiar with BIOSes, because UEFI has been up for quite a few years now. But yeah, UEFI makes things a whole lot easier than things were with back when it was primarily just the BIOS setup utility. Okay, so this one here looks good. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one. It puts my mind at ease knowing these things start up okay without any issues. So we're essentially working in reverse order. This is the second one that we worked on. This was the AMD Socket 939 system. Again, same kind of deal. And it seems like on these things, almost every one of them so far, there's like this padding that goes on. That's actually the padding. There's actually padding on the I/O shield plate on both sides of the HDMI port, and it seems like some of it has sort of gotten smushed down in a way when the motherboard was installed. It's kind of annoying. Okay. Start this one up. The first one also took a while to get going. Just looking inside, make sure all the fans are working. Yep. There we go. Now we get post. See if we get BIOS. There we are. So pretty much same kind of thing. Just going in to check the hardware monitor. Voltages look fine. So do the temps. So essentially, this is the this is the one that we replaced the power supply in with that ACBO unit that was from the Asus tower. And of course, we're going to shut this one down in a moment and swap it out for the third one. See how this BIOS behaves. I'm not sure if it looks like it's configured for legacy boot right now. It just restarted. Yeah, of course, right now it's set for legacy boot, which I think is a good idea. To have it by default set to legacy, and then once you get Windows 10 installed and all that good stuff, well, assuming you're going to install Windows 10, you would go into the BIOS and set it to UEFI boot and all that good stuff. This one here looks good. So last but not least, the final one, which is actually the first one we rebuilt. And funny, the line is sub to 3, because this case here is a whole lot cheaper made than the other two. This is back when eMachines started cutting corners on their cases a little bit. It's not a bad case. It's just they didn't use quite as strong a material to manufacture it. I'm not going to open this one. And again, it's like the others. The first startup does take a little bit. Here we are. Now see, the 12-volt rail in this Delta unit is just a little bit lower, but it's well within spec. Yeah, these particular machines are not very high power draw. So let's see, go into Let's get a quick look at the BIOS on this one. Here's our boot options. Yeah, of course, right now it's pretty much defaulting to legacy boot. That's what I was curious of. Just want to confirm what I was saying earlier. Yeah, these machines are ready to go. So we're just going. I'll work on getting Windows loaded on them, and then we should be all set. And from there, once I get done with that, we'll resume this video. So, we have the 3 machines upgraded. Now we just need to get the software side of things completed. Okay, everybody, got those 3 computers done. Let's go ahead and have a look at one of them. This is the newest of the 3, or at least the original eMachines systems. And of course, all 3 of these are imaged with a pre-built Windows 10 image that's specific for this client. It has a lot of their specific software and stuff like that. So we'll look at the specs. So your Ryzen 3 2200G with Radeon Vega graphics, 8 gigs of RAM, 500 gig hard drive, with future upgrade potential to an M.2 SSD on the board. So these will definitely be a huge improvement over what this client has been using. Yeah, a lot like I mentioned earlier in the video, a lot of the machines that they have are roughly from the Windows Vista era. So, although they're running like Windows 10 and Windows 7 respectively, it'd be a huge improvement for them. So anyways, that's bringing new life into an older eMachine system, or 3 older eMachine systems, with the relatively newly released AMD Ryzen 3 2200G APU processor. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, I sure hope you guys enjoyed this video from Q Computer Channel. Remember to like the video, subscribe to Q Computer Channel for more updates, and remember to tick the bell so that you actually get notified of these updates. Did you know that I am also on a second channel that's CubeComp MTDX? Over there you'll find videos of bicycling, weather, elevators, and all sorts of other neat and interesting stuff. Feel free to subscribe to that channel as well. And again, I thank you for your support, and thanks for watching this video.